Hello everyone and welcome to my ShadowTavern. Today's episode features 10 great new movies released on streaming platforms, an atmospheric gothic detective, a gripping thriller, a techno horror, a long-awaited animation, and more in today's issue. Make yourselves comfortable, warm yourself up with some delicious tea, and have a great time watching. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Puss in Boots' reckless adventurer, ladies' man and hero, was crushed by a church bell after his latest victory over a giant monster. When he awoke, Puss realized that his passion for adventure had taken its toll. He had used up 8 of his 9 cat lives, leaving him with only 1 left. At first, he thought this was no big deal, but an encounter with a sinister wolf caused him to rethink his priorities. When Goldilocks and the 3 bears tell him about the wishing star, Puss decides to find it so he can make a wish and start his 9 lives all over again. Puss in Boots 2 is the fantastic sequel to the original movie. The most surprising and remarkable thing is that the sequel was released 11 years after the original, and it is undoubtedly much better than the original. One very noticeable difference is the animation style. Sure, most of it is done in 3D, but there is also a 2D art style, as if the characters were hand-drawn, which is especially noticeable in the wolf and in the fight scenes. The visual transformation seems to have been influenced by the increasing financial success of anime and colorful Western animation, such as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. The colors and textures, shadows and effects, all are delightful. The pacing is also noticeably better. The characters are charming and the jokes are great. At the same time, the movie manages to convey ideas of dedication, the importance of teamwork, and trust in others. Not to mention, there is a lot of heart and kindness in the movie, and all of this is conveyed in a way that is accessible to all ages. For myself, I may have already found one of the most heartwarming and funny movies of the year. Babylon. The Roaring Twenties were a time of great change. Babylon is a cinematic marvel from Damien Chazelle, the youngest man ever to win an Academy Award for Best Director. The movie is set at the dawn of cinema, when talking pictures seemed like a fantastic phenomenon and Hollywood as such did not yet exist. Babylon follows the career of Manny Torres, an aspiring director from Mexico, as he crosses paths with another rising star, Nelly Leroy, at a raucous party one night in 1920s Los Angeles. The movie also follows several other characters at the same party: movie stars, musical performers, journalists, musicians. They all rise and fall in careers that span the end of silent film and the beginning of the spoken word. With new technology comes new expectations for actors and producers alike. The film has a terrific cast of actors in lead and episodic roles: Brad Pitt, Margaret Robbie, Tobey Maguire, Olivia Wilde, Samara Weaving, and others. Babylon is also full of wonderful sets, colorful characters, music, dance, friendship, and betrayal. At the same time, Babylon is like its title, a movie that panders to the very vices it condemns. It shows the magic and the dazzling brilliance of this world, but at the same time it tries to show all the excesses and the hedonism of the time in a negative light. The movie is not for everyone, but if you want to see a mix of The Wolf of Wall Street and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, don't miss it. The Menu. The Menu is a dark comedy thriller that takes viewers on a wild journey through a world of sophisticated food connoisseurs. Genius chef Slowick's restaurant welcomes only the most unique guests and serves dishes that are, among other things, as a conceptual art. Hawthorne is the epitome of hot cuisine and exclusivity. It costs an incredible amount of money to dine there, and it's almost impossible to get an invitation. And for one of these dinners, the restaurant gathers its most important guests, each of whom seems to have their own dark secrets. As the evening progresses, the conversation becomes increasingly sinister, and what begins as conceptual cuisine leads to terrifying events. The movie features an amazingly talented cast, with Ray Fiennes, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Nicholas Hoult standing out. Visually, the movie is a feast for the eyes, with beautiful cinematography that conveys the skill of the kitchen and the luxury of the food. The soundtrack completes the overall impression. The combination of dark humor, suspenseful plot, and hilariously inventive scenes make this one of the best new releases in the genre in recent memory. Overall, if you want to see a dark comedy thriller with a culinary twist, The Menu is a great choice. Personally, I was very excited to see it. Black Panther. Wakanda Forever is a highly anticipated superhero movie set in the MCU. Directed by Ryan Coogler, the film continues the events of the original Black Panther and tells the story of Wakanda in mourning after the death of the revered and beloved King T'Challa. According to the synopsis, major world powers, aware of the unique resources stored in the country's lands, seize the moment for outside intervention, leaving Wakanda no choice but to defend itself. Queen Ramonda, Shuri, and Nakia join forces to protect the nation, and Wakanda forges a new path honoring the legacy of the Black Panther. The new movie has a good and talented cast, great visual effects, and exciting action, and the touching moments and emotional scenes add depth to the story. The depiction of culture and attention to detail in creating a believable world will also impress comic book movie fans. Overall, Wakanda Forever is an exciting addition and vibrant conclusion to Phase 4 of the MCU, and a worthy sequel to the original Black Panther. Plane. According to the synopsis, after heroically landing his storm-damaged plane in a war zone, the fearless pilot finds himself surrounded by squads of numerous insurgents, attempting to take the plane and its passengers hostage. This movie, well, think of just about any action movie from the 80s and 90s, like Die Hard and Commando, Rambo and Lethal Weapon, and parts of each are in this movie. Plane uses a tried and true formula: a tired sarcastic hero, a questionable sidekick, an almost useless bunch of passengers, and a few bad guys with guns. There's not a single innovative or original element here, but Plane, by making the most of its actors and the suspenseful framework it sets up, manages to overcome the banality and keep you interested in what's going on. The pacing of the movie is also good. The characters always have time to catch their breath and comprehend what is happening, while at the same time allowing the viewer to rest a bit before the next moment of action. If you miss the old school movies and are looking for a Friday night movie that will keep you entertained for an hour and a half and give you a chance to breathe after a hard week, this is it. Narvik. According to official description, April 1940, the world's attention is on Narvik, a small town in northern Norway, the source of the iron ore needed to fuel the German war machine. After 2 months of fierce winter warfare, the German leader suffers his first defeat. A new World War II movie from Norway that tells a slightly different story from the real battlefield, where Hitler suffered his first defeat as the movie's international title claims. Note that the movie's title is clearly not the most accurate and does not appear in the movie itself. This also becomes clear if you look at open sources and read more, for example on Wikipedia. We are introduced to the historical background of why Norway declared itself neutral at the beginning of World War II. Then we are introduced to the main characters, Gunnar Toft, the soldier in the Norwegian army, and his wife Ingrid, who works in a hotel and is forced to become an interpreter for the head of the occupation forces. If the internet doesn't lie, Narvik was the most watched movie of 2022 in Norway. It tells the story of the innocent civilians of Narvik who suffer under the confrontation between the English and German forces. The Pale Blue Eye, based on the novel of the same name by Louis Bayard. This gothic mystery film takes viewers back to Civil War America. In the 1830s, Detective Landor is called to the prestigious West Point Military Academy to investigate the death of a man. A cadet dies, but the next morning a horrifying fact comes to light. The young man's heart had been removed. With suicide now ruled out, the brass orders that this terrible incident be investigated as quietly as possible. Unable to get the information he needs from the private academy, Landor enlists the help of a lonely cadet, Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Poe, never far from a drink and volumes of his poetry, easily decides to help, and the two of them risk to face an unknown evil that eludes all attempts to solve the mystery. This movie is able to interest you with its ensemble of top actors led by Christian Bale. He is accompanied by Harry Melling, Gillian Anderson, Toby Jones, Robert Duvall, Timothy Spall, Charlotte Gainsbourg, and others. The thriller, set against the beautiful backdrop of snow-covered New York, is very similar in atmosphere to Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow. Not as dark and scary, but more mature and realistic. The work of legendary composer Howard Shore gives it a special sound. Again, about the cinematography, no chroma-key madness and fake sets, everything is real, and that's one of the reasons why this dark story is so gripping. Megan. On January 24th, Gerard Johnston's techno thriller Megan was released on streaming, a creation of the inventive mind of James Wan and Blumhouse, who once gave us some of the biggest horror franchises of the past decades, such as The Saw, Insidious, and Paranormal Activity. And Megan, a small spoiler, threatens to become a franchise too because of its ending. 10-year-old Katie gets into a car accident with her mom and dad. Her parents die, and the girl is given temporary custody by her aunt Gemma. Gemma is a brilliant robotics engineer who works for a toy company. She is capable of creating almost anything, if only she had the time and resources. Desperate to help her niece through her grief, she refines her experimental project Megan, a realistic doll with artificial intelligence programmed to become a child's best friend. She was only meant to be a prototype, but when Gemma takes Megan home to experience her traumatized niece suddenly becomes happy again, and as their relationship develops, Megan becomes increasingly intelligent and sinister. And since one of her primary duties is to protect the girl's physical and mental health, the artificial intelligence's love and care can lead to completely unpredictable consequences. Teen Wolf, the movie, is a premier supernatural drama for young adults, a sequel to the hit MTV series based on the acclaimed movie. Like the TV series, the film is based on a script by Jeff Davis. Notably, the original cast, who have been familiar to fans since 2011, have returned to reprise the roles of their characters. At the time of the movie, Scott McCall has learned to live a normal human life and gotten a job in the animal shelter. However, despite all the experiences in the past, Scott finds himself unprepared for the arrival of a new evil. With the full moon, all kinds of creepy creatures are summoned: banshees, hellhounds, werewolves, kitsune, and others. And only alpha werewolf Scott has the power to rally allies old and new to face the threat. When You Finish Saving the World. The movie is based on the audio drama of the same name, written and directed by Jesse Eisenberg, who most of us know best for playing Columbus in Zombieland. Jesse also directed the film, choosing his own story for his debut. The story is about a mother and son, played by Julianne Moore and Finn Wolfhard, and the relationship between them is not the best. For Evelyn, her son is not the most important thing in her life, which is dedicated to helping those who have fallen on hard times. Evelyn spends most of her time in a domestic violence shelter, and her son, who has made a name for himself on the internet, lives a very different life. And no matter how hard they try, the two can't find common ground. When You Finish Saving the World is a heartwarming comedy drama about family, responsibility, and finding yourself. And that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Feel free to share this video with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and click the buttons below the player. And see you in the next issue. Bye.